Hi everyone, this is Elias Martin from CollectingJapanesePrints.com coming to you. It's Woodblock Wednesday, where every Wednesday we get together and discuss Japanese prints, art, culture, history. So thank you for joining me for today's installment. I've been thinking about what's been going on. I imagine everyone is. It's unavoidable. We have nothing but time to reflect on what's been going on, and I don't know, I keep stressing this to my friends and my colleagues and my clients, that this is a really great time to reflect. And if anything, if you have the gift of being interested in a particular topic, particularly art, this is a great time to explore those interests. It's a great time to explore your hobbies or pick up a new hobby or a new interest. And for me, you know, it's been a great time for me to think back to the prints that I've come across, and maybe some prints or paintings that may even connect to what's going on lately. And, you know, there's a lot of art that, you know, we come across that illustrates images that of scenes that we may not be able to relate. A lot of us haven't seen war atrocities up close and personal, but you know, we have Goya's etchings or prints to remind us or to give us a glimpse of those things, or his paintings. His late paintings really showcase that. And or even, you know, there have been issues like this in history with disease and plagues, and probably for most of us who are watching this video have never experienced anything quite like this. So, you know, it's interesting to reflect what's going on lately with art that might speak to our experience, and maybe, you know, maybe we could explore that and learn a few things from that. So, for that reason, you know, I've been thinking about what to show all of you, and I decided to show a complete set by Fumio Kitaoka of his Repatriation set. They're woodblock prints that he produced in 1948. They're basically scenes of his travels from Manchuria, when, you know, basically when Japan occupied parts of China, and then after the war they went back to China, and Kitaoka and his family, his wife and his young daughter, I think she was a baby, they had to go back to Japan. And he basically showed this arduous journey. I mean, it's a very difficult journey from town to town to get to a point where he can embark on a ship to go back to Japan. I think he had to go through China, but either walking or through carts. I mean, it was really interesting, and I imagine really difficult. And once he got to, I think, Korea, he was able to take a boat back to Japan. But the prints really depict the difficulty of the journey, and not just for him, but for other people that were left in Manchuria to fend for themselves, so that they could come back to their homeland. So this set really speaks to, you know, a difficulty or a period in history where people were faced with huge obstacles. And for many of us, these obstacles were much more than what we're enduring ourselves. So, you know, I think it's a good time to reflect on other people's experiences in life, and particularly artists who are very adept at bringing out those issues in life, and that could basically fill in the gaps for us in our, you know, our own experiences, and give us some really valuable insight. So, without further ado, we'll go to the table. I've laid out the entire set of prints. It's a complete set, and I'll be able to talk about each work individually. Alrighty. So, the first work I'll show you is actually the envelope. This is a really neat thing to have. This is the original envelope that Kitaoka produced for his sets, and the envelope, this calligraphy or the lettering here, is actually done by hand. So I don't know if you can tell, but that you could faintly see sort of pencil marks here
where he had these lines drawn in, and he added the calligraphy and then removed the pencil. But basically, you could kind of see the lines. Here you see the indentation here above repatriate. So you could see it has a very strong homemade quality because he in fact did it himself. And here he pasted one of the prints from the series onto the folder. You see that. I've seen a few complete folders, complete sets with their original folder, and it's interesting. Two of them have this same exact design as their cover, but I'm aware of one that is a different print, which is interesting. So I believe there's a complete set at the Art Institute of Chicago, and then I have a colleague, or not a client actually, who has a complete set as well. So and then there's another one I'm aware of that it has a different print on the cover. And so, before we go to the prints, I want to point out that this book by Lawrence Smith, associated with the British Museum, he put out this great book. This is about maybe 10, 15 years old, and it discusses the prints that were produced after the war, immediately after the war, and about 10 years later. And so this series is highlighted in this exhibition, or this catalog, and there's a few designs that are illustrated, but Lawrence Smith does a great job of explaining Kitaoka's journey and what was happening. All right, the first prints, this is the first design, and I know this partly because Kitaoka, the artist, did a really good job. He added these little pieces of paper in the verso with a number, so you could call this almost like a station, and then the title here. And so this is, Lawrence Smith suggests that this is possibly Kitaoka, his wife, and their very young daughter setting out on the journey. I should also point out that in this set, the prints are all signed in pencil, and you can tell that this is a very early printing because Kitaoka used a really weird paper. The paper almost looks like there's mica on it, but that is not mica. It is actually a mineral deposit in the paper itself. Here, I'll show you this other print. You could kind of see the speckles in the paper. And you know, I've had clients ask me, why would Kitaoka produce such a dark set that has mica on it? And the answer is he didn't. The paper that he used on this set and all of his early post-war prints is printed on this exact paper. And the story goes is that Kitaoka was able to secure a huge roll of this paper from a factory. I either went out of business, it was like leftover stock, but whatever the case, he was able to secure this huge roll for almost nothing, and it's not printmaking paper. It is not. So, but it's the paper he used to produce some of his most interesting post-war designs. So for collectors out there that are interested in knowing whether they have an early, assuming it's a post-war design, they want to know whether it's an early printing or a later printing. You want to look at the paper. If the paper has these sort of speckles of silver in it, then you know that it is actually, in fact, a very early printing. Kitaoka revisited his post-war designs in the 60s and so on. And so those are usually, he usually put an EP on them, so it's an artist proof of some type. But those are on different paper. The paper is more fibrous. It's actually printmaking paper, but they're not as early. So I should point that out. So I'm going to zoom in on the prints that you could see. So this is another work. It might be his wife and daughter. And I should also mention that in Kitaoka's journey through Manchuria or China, he was exposed to Chinese woodblocks
that had basically there were social realistic designs. That movement was very much in vogue in Japan, in China at the time, and there's a lot of books out now on Chinese woodcuts and those social realistic images that was produced at the time. And Kitaoka saw them and became very influenced by them and decided to produce this set in that style. You can see here there's a group of people sort of resting. Imagine how many hours they've been walking from village to village. You see someone hunched over there, someone fanning themselves. It's probably very hot. This person's almost collapsed onto something that's maybe to catch a few moments sleep. Here's another one. A family. It looks like they're feeding a young child. Again, this might be Kitaoka and his wife. Here we see maybe villagers that were sort of looking at the Japanese as they were moving back. I can't imagine this wasn't a positive experience, knowing that the Japanese occupied part of China, called it Manchuria, and then the Chinese, once they reclaimed the territory, I can imagine those exchanges between the people the Japanese going back home and having to go through these villages. I wonder what the Chinese were saying to them. Here's a design featuring two people. There's a woman there that is going to fill up her canteen, and there's a man there. He just looks like he's so thirsty, and he's just bending over to get a sip of water from this creek. You can just imagine, on this journey, finding a source of water, and yet at the same time, this man drinking water directly out of the river, and the woman obtaining water directly from the river. Who knows how many times people got sick on this journey just from the water. It's shocking to me to think, of that kind of journey. And here we have these travelers on these carts, and as Lauren Smith indicated, a part of the journey, they were able to get onto carts that were drawn by horses, but the vast majority of the trip was actually on foot, and it was from town to town to town, trying to get to the point as I think it was a border town between China and Korea, where they were able to then embark on a boat. Here, I'm going to zoom in so you could kind of see the carving of this design. You could see Kitaoka's really skillful, really expressive, powerful carving that exploits the black of the design, where how he prints that black and how stark it is in contrast to the white. And that's been sort of carved out, and you could see the lines in the background. I mean, that's fantastic. So I'll show you. I'm going around the table here, and the set is on these backing sheets that were original, that have the title and the number of the plate on the verso. But I want to show you how they look just laid out on the table. This table is about 8 feet long, so it takes up a lot of space. The prints themselves aren't that large. They vary from koban size or postcard size prints, ibon. Some of them are almost oban, but not quite. You can see here a group of people, possibly Kitaoka's wife and child, and maybe that's him, in the rain as they're making their way through. And this design, this is a really, I like this design quite a bit. His sense of light and shadow in this work. It's all, again, black and white, but the way that he's carved out the design really exploits the power of this monochrome format. Here we have a very bleak design of a woman who is crouching over it looks like it could be a man or it could be a woman, but it looks like they passed, and she's there crying into her hands. The next work we have here is a man sort of just cleaning his feet. Imagine walking miles and miles in a day, and you're getting to a point where you're in a town and you probably have blisters and your feet are swollen, and I would imagine that's the first thing people want to take care of is their feet. Here we have sort of, maybe it looks like a shelter. Maybe this is a place where they're spending the night. You have maybe some clothes or something that are, it might be blankets, or who knows, maybe clothes or towels that are being laid out on a line to dry. And then there's just people here. The next work is his self-portrait. It's documented. It's actually even indicated on the back where it says self-portrait. Where all the others have appropriate titles, this is the only one that makes reference to it being a self-portrait, which is, I'm a big fan of self-portraits in prints, and this is one where you could see him. He's a young man at this time, and you could see his youth, but at the same time, you see him kind of weathered by the experience of what is happening. Now this one is a portrait of another man, maybe a friend of his that maybe he became friends with him on the journey. It's not known. He doesn't have the name of the person here. Just another scene from maybe, a city or a little town where they're getting ready to go again, gathering supplies to go somewhere, or maybe just to go to the next town. And here we have, obviously it looks like a makeshift hospital. Here you see the Red Cross insignia on the flag. So it's a place where they probably stop to get treatment or to get supplies, food, who knows, but you could see so many people in here. It's interesting to see the light coming in from the possibly a skylight or just holes in the ceiling. Now the last work is probably the most famous work, and this is the work that inspired me to present this set to you today. It is the last, I guess if I could call it the last station, if I could use the term we use for Hiroshige, his Tokaido, or other artists' Tokaidos, but this last design is of a group of people that have landed back at the homeland in Japan, and they're at a port and they're all coming off of boats, and there's a man here that is spraying them with DDT, which is not something you would want sprayed on yourself. It's a very toxic chemical, but the DDT was basically used to kill off any diseases they might be bringing. So yeah, it's a very, very powerful work. And someone just mentioned, David just mentioned that Orozco, who is a social realist painter from Mexico, produced a lot of work that's very reminiscent of this, and it's correct.
This work was inspired, as I mentioned earlier in the video, by Chinese woodblocks that were strongly influenced by social realism. And so Orozco, Diego Rivera, they were all sort of drawing in from the same sort of influence. So, but yeah, this set has a very strong social realistic quality, showing the people, showing them in their showing them directly in this arduous experience of traveling back through China into Korea, then back to Japan. So in this print, I'll zoom in so you could see. This is, as I said, probably one of the most famous designs from this set. And just imagine being, you finally make it home, and then you have to do one last thing that almost dehumanizes you. And certainly it's not a thing that you would want to happen based on just the potency of the chemicals being used. So, it just kind of makes me, think about what's going on now and what might happen in the near future, and people becoming quite scared about viruses. Who knows what's ahead of us? But what I think is helpful is sort of reflect on the past and see what's happened, and maybe to learn some lessons from those experiences. And of course, artists like Kitaoka have provided us with direct experiences left in their work to show us possibly the way. So I'm going to go back from my table so you could see the set one last time, but in reverse. Again, I'll show you how they're laid out on the table. They take quite a bit of room. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining me on our latest edition of Woodblock Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed looking at the prints. They're very powerful works, some of the most powerful designs that were created out of post-war Japan. It's a pleasure to be able to share them with you. And I'm open to suggestions for next week's Woodblock Wednesday. So if you want to see something in particular, or there's a theme you want me to explore, feel free to post a comment in the comments for the video, and I'll pick something out that might work for next week. So thanks again. I really appreciate it. And if you have any other questions or you want to learn more about Japanese prints, feel free to visit my website, collectingjapaneseprints.com, or shoot me an email, direct message from Facebook, and I'm happy to answer. Thank you very much. See you soon.